Guys, like, comment, subscribe, share the video, especially if you love college football as much as I do. Let's talk about the USC Trojans. Miller Moss, that's his name, right? I know his last name's Moss. He had a great bowl game, and I was really impressed with him because I think he was a freshman, right? Look, I don't follow a lot of these teams like I should, but I have seen how these teams play, and you can kind of predict how they're going to look because of how they play every year and what to expect. Um, but I know that he was not the starter. Miller was a backup. He was Caleb Williams' backup, and I really thought Louisville was going to beat them in that bowl. I know he had 6 touchdown passes. He looked really good. Really good patience in the pocket. He knew when to escape and start running to where he could throw it to somebody. And I liked how he looked. He looked really good as far as a player goes. I'm gonna go out on a limb because they hired UCLA's old defensive coordinator from this past year, and UCLA was known for having a pretty good defense. So while I don't expect USC to have an elite defense, I think they'll have a much improved defense. And that will be the difference between losing some of the close games they had last year or 2 possession losses versus winning some of those games. Let's go through this. They start off with a home game. Not really home, but it's closer to home for them than it is LSU. I believe they win this game 38-31. And people are going to right away assume, well, LSU's defense hasn't been fixed. Look, I think LSU's defense is going to be really good this year. Giving up 38 points to Lincoln Riley, any of his teams, is not a bad thing, okay? I just think having a favorable USC crowd will be the difference in this showdown. Should be a great game. LSU definitely could win this game, and I wouldn't be surprised. But I would have to go with USC winning. Same thing. If this game was in Baton Rouge, I'd go with LSU. Sorry. Utah State, then they go to Michigan. Utah State, they should win that game, no problem. I've already talked about the Michigan game. I think Michigan is just too young. They lost all their coaches. I think Sherrone Moore is going to be a great coach for Michigan. He has the right attitude. He's not afraid to speak his mind. I personally think he was doing much more beyond than just what his job title was. This past year, I know Harbaugh was listed as the head coach, but Harbaugh missed 5 or 6 games or whatever it was, including Penn State and Ohio State, 2 of their biggest regular season games every year, pretty much, right? So I think he's already got a lot of head coaching experience, and it'll translate over. I think they're better than Michigan early on in the year, and I think they get a big W. If you want to see the score, I've already talked about it in the Michigan video. And then they come back home to take on Wisconsin. I believe they beat Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin, this is a tricky matchup. Wisconsin went out and got Tyler Van Dyke. I know he didn't look good in his last few years with Miami, partly because of injuries, and I think he just had a bad year this past year with the turnovers. But he has shown that he's a really good player, and I think having Luke Fickell as his head coach will be an upgrade for him, will be better. Nothing against Mario Cristobal, but that's just my opinion. I mean, Fickell has taken a group of 5 Cincinnati team, an undefeated team, to the playoff. Cristobal hasn't done that. I think there's levels to this. Not to say, but whatever. I think they win this game. And some of these games I haven't done scores for, but whatever. It doesn't really matter. I think it'll be a competitive game. I think USC's defense will bail them out and help them win this game by 6 points or less. Then they go to Minnesota. Minnesota can be a tricky place to play at night, especially if they're hosting a pretty high-ranked team or a really good team. But I think USC wins this game also. And now they're off to a 5-0 start. Then they come back home to take on Penn State. Penn State will be either a top 15 or a top 10 team by this point. This is a game they could lose, and I wouldn't be surprised. Here's the thing. Until I see Coach Franklin have a consistently good quarterback and not just a good defense that's dependent to win every game, I'm not going to pick Penn State to win nothing when it comes to big games. With that being said, I believe they beat Penn State at home in a really good game. And then they go to Maryland. This is another possible game they could lose. Maryland's not great, but they're not garbage. They are a winning program. They actually have won back-to-back bowl games over NC State and Auburn. That's pretty good. And they beat Auburn without their quarterback. I think they win this game. Rutgers at home. Rutgers tough. They're physical. They're big on the line of scrimmage. They could definitely play hard and give USC trouble, but I think USC's talent will overcome that. I believe the defensive coordinator will make a big difference in this game. USC should win and pull away. They go to Washington. I believe they win that game. It's hard for me to pick Washington to win much of anything with all their players gone, their head coach gone, and all those things against them. So, yeah. Now, their last 3 games, listen to this. Home against Nebraska, at UCLA, and then back home against Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish. I think they beat UCLA. They lost Chip Kelly to Ohio State. Their defensive coordinator is with them now, so that's going to be tension. But I think they went over there in the Rose Bowl. I think that's their home field, right? I have them losing to Nebraska. Now, look, every team has a hiccup game. You know, there's levels to college football. There's garbage. There's not very good. There's pedestrian average. There's a winning team, but they're not great. Pretty good. Really good. I feel like there's those levels. And then great. I think USC is going to be a really good team. A really good team is going to lose to an okay team at home or away whenever the other team that's like Nebraska that's not great but plays great. And I think USC will trip up and lose this game at home in overtime. I believe the defense will be what keeps them in this game. I believe USC's offense will lay an egg in this game at home. And I believe they lose to a team that has no business beating them in Nebraska because Nebraska is also in building mode. They're rebuilding. I think Matt Rule's a great coach. He's the perfect fit for Nebraska long term. And Nebraska is going to look for a signature win under Matt Rule. This will be their signature win. Again, I think this is the hiccup game. I think USC is better than Nebraska. But Nebraska last year, if you look at them, they've always had a pretty solid defense under Matt Rule. They played tough. They were tough on the lines of scrimmage. And they had a lot of turnovers. With Jeff Sims, whatever his name was, from Georgia Tech. He's a turnover machine. And then they had Brock Purdy. No, not Chubba Purdy, whatever his name is. He was another quarterback. And they just hurt themselves in a lot of these games. I think Nebraska will not be a great team, but they'll be a program that's winning a lot of close games. This is one of them. And people are going to say, oh my goodness, Matt Rule is starting to take over Nebraska. He's starting to elevate them, and he will. This will be one of those games. And then I believe they lose at home to Notre Dame. I've already made a Notre Dame version of this video. This will be the end of their playoff hopes. Notre Dame and USC hate each other. They don't like each other. It's usually a great game. But this will be a game where everything's on the line. Playoffs, all those things are at stake in this game. Because you already have one loss. But, you know, with a 12-team playoff, it's great. But it also means it's going to be easier for certain teams to get in there that probably wouldn't. That would have had no chance getting in a 14 playoff. This is one of those games. They're both having a loss at some point in this season. They both need this win. I think Notre Dame is just a little bit better. Defensively, they'll be better. This is they both have third-year head coaches. But unfortunately, USC has not been consistently good with defense. And this year, I think they'll be a lot better. But I believe having Marcus Freeman by now in his third year, he's recruiting better at the wide receiver position and defensive back position than what Brian Kelly did. And I think it'll show in this game. And I think Notre Dame is this much better. So give me Notre Dame to beat USC. And at this point, they're 10-2. Another 10-win season for Lincoln Riley. I mean, this is my opinion. This is worst case. Best case, they go undefeated, which is also very possible. Again, because I have not seen their defense play good. I've never seen Lincoln Riley have a good defense. It's hard for me to say that he will now. But I will say, and it's fair to say, they'll have a better defense because he finally got rid of Alex Grinch, and he has a real defensive coordinator from UCLA. So that's it. 10-2 Trojans.